This peacekeeper role isn't your thing, Dustin said, shaking his head, his tone still cold. Scott took my friend's life, and today he will pay for it. Nobody can stop me. What? You won't even show me respect? Anders frowned, displeased. Since you found Jadleaf Manor, you should know who I am. I am picky with the people I want and I don't appreciate being turned down. You better think it over. Reese, Sir Anders really admires you. It's a blessing to be acknowledged. You shouldn't disrespect him, Scott shouted, trying to stir things up even more. He didn't want to see Dustin rising to the top, so he intentionally used his words to stir things up. Dustin warned Anders, I recommend you to stay away from matters that don't concern you, or you might get yourself in trouble. Trouble? Anders suddenly laughed, his eyes icy. I'll give you props for being gutsy, but causing a scene in my territory. You aren't all that. So you're defending him? Dustin asked. You bet, Anders declared loudly. Just so you know, I've got Scott's back. If you step out of line, you won't be walking out of here in one piece. You hear that? Lay a finger on me, and you're done for. With Anders supporting him, Scott couldn't help but grow confident and become full of himself. Anders was the god of war in Dragonmarsh and led an army of 300,000. Even if Dustin were a force to be reckoned with, he couldn't hold a candle to Anders. Weren't you talking big just a minute ago? Why so quiet now? Scott deliberately took a few steps forward, taunting. Come on. Weren't you itching to take me down? I'm right here. If you're feeling brave, give it a shot. Dustin stayed silent, face expressionless. What's the matter? You're too scared to step up. All right, I'll come a little closer for you. Scott took a few more steps forward. His head was raised high as he sneered at Dustin while beckoning with his finger. Come on, if you've got the guts, come over here. Let's see if you. Before he could finish, Dustin suddenly raised his hand, and a brilliant white light burst forth. Like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, it sliced through Scott's neck. Scott trembled, his smile frozen as a blinding flash left him bewildered. Before he could comprehend what was going on, the light had vanished. What just happened? What's going on? Panic gripped him as his heart raced. He felt a chill on his neck. When he touched it, his hand was covered in blood. Why was there blood? How was that possible? His thoughts were interrupted as the world around him spun. A jarring thud of something hitting the ground caught his attention. In the next second, Scott was startled to see the back of his own body from the ground. He was wearing a suit and standing tall, but there was no head on his shoulders. He had turned into a headless body. Where's my head? Where is it? Scott tried to scream, but there was no sound. All he could do was watch as his headless body fell to the ground. Darkness enveloped his vision, and he succumbed to unconsciousness. Just like that, Scott was dead. His head had been severed in one swift move by Dustin. Everything happened so fast that Scott didn't see his fate coming until the last moment. He blamed himself for being too arrogant. If Scott had stayed close to Anders, Dustin wouldn't have taken him out so quickly. Scott thought he had everything under control. He even felt overly confident as he approached Dustin, planning to show he was unbothered by his threats. Dead, he's dead. Everyone stared in shock and horror at Scott's headless body. No one expected Dustin to be so ruthless, killing Scott right before the Veros warrior. This was downright challenging the authority of the Moseys. This is outrageous. How unbelievable. You've killed someone from the Moseys. How bold of you. After collecting themselves from the shock, people began shouting in anger. Dustin's actions were more than just revenge, but it was a direct challenge to the authority of the Moseys. If Anders left it be, the Moseys' reputation would suffer. At that moment, Anders' expression had turned grim. His gaze was icy, and his killing intent was unmistakable. Anders wasn't bothered whether Scott lived or died. But when Dustin dared to kill someone in front of him despite his assurances, it carried a much deeper meaning. After all, when targeting someone, you should be mindful of witnesses. For Destin to kill Scott in front of Anders was a direct insult. Anders, the respected Veros warrior, wielded significant power and respect among the people. When had he ever faced such a bold challenge? If he didn't assert his authority, how could he lead his troops in the future? Bastard, you sure got the nerve. Anders scowled, his gaze piercing. You dare to kill my god brother. Do you know the consequences? Destin stayed silent. Instead, he walked over to Scott's lifeless body and stomped on Scott's chest. A loud explosion echoed. Scott's headless body exploded into pieces, turning into a pile of blood and flesh. Destin was explicitly expressing his intention by shattering the body into 1,000 pieces. It left no room for doubt. He obliterated the remains of Scott's body and then grabbed Scott's hair, lifting his severed head. Lana had died because of them. Destin planned to take Scott's severed head to show he had avenged her. You're dead meat. Destin's indifference and disdain annoyed Anders, leading him to throw a punch without exchanging further words. A scorching golden light shot out like a missile toward Destin. Destin raised his hand without dodging or evading, releasing a burst of blinding white light. The golden light and white brilliance collided with each other, resulting in a deafening roar. The collision caused overwhelming waves of energy that were like a tidal wave. There was a strong blast of wind. It hit the crowd like a tornado. The collision between two grandmother-level experts was far beyond what an ordinary person could endure, even if it was just the aftermath of their battle. Realizing the danger, people scattered immediately to keep a safe distance. This bastard is indeed a grandmother martial artist. No wonder he's so confident. Anders squinted his eyes, even though he hadn't used full force in that punch. Only a grandmother-level expert could withstand it. Anders, I don't wish to fight with you today. If you dare to obstruct me again, don't blame me for not holding back, Destin said coldly. Holding back? Anders sneered. You think you can leave here alive today after killing someone from the Mosies? Your measly life won't be enough to pay for what you've done. Prepare to die. With that, he threw two punches at Destin using the Golden Fury Fists technique. Destin stomped his foot, causing a flurry of stones to soar into the air as he waved his hand. The stones shot forward like bullets toward Anders' Golden Fury Fist. The attacks disintegrated, exploding in the air and dissipating into a powerful force. During this moment, Anders surged forward suddenly. His right fist gleamed brightly, shining like the sun. Celestial fury struck. He shouted as his glowing fist struck with force. The crushed stones suddenly vanished, and the plants dried up as a powerful force shook the world's foundations. The golden light transformed the landscape, distorting the air itself. Caught in the onslaught, Destin resembled a small boat in a storm on the edge of being torn apart. That punch is terrifying, and such overwhelming pressure truly befitting the Veros warrior. This punch is earth-shattering. It's unstoppable. If this bastard dies at the hands of the Veros warrior, he should consider it an honor. Anders' technique excited the spectators. They all knew he was undoubtedly a formidable force on the battlefield. If we're going to fight, then I'll see it through to the end. Destin remained unfazed and unyielding. He threw a punch directly at Anders. His fist radiated a white glow and manifested into a fierce tiger, slamming head-on into Anders' golden light. A massive explosion echoed through the air. Two brilliant lights burst forth, turning into surging waves of energy that spread in every direction. Everything crumbled: flowers, grass, trees, and even buildings were wiped out by the waves of energy. The bone-chilling destructive power sent shivers down the spectators' spines. They might have been completely obliterated if they hadn't stepped back earlier. Just like those plants and buildings, it was downright terrifying. Once the dust settled, a massive crater appeared at the center of the explosion. It was roughly 30 feet in diameter, resembling a dried-up pond. It was a devastating sight. At the edge of the crater, Destin and Anders locked eyes from a distance. Destin was expressionless, his gaze indifferent, still holding Scott's severed head. Anders had a serious expression, facing a formidable opponent. The two stood in a tense standoff, neither making any sudden moves. Wait, did this bastard block Sir Anders' earth-shattering strike just now? Someone exclaimed. Not only did he block it, but he also looks like he hasn't suffered any injuries, another added. Wow, since when did Oakvale have a genius who can go head-to-head with the Varos warrior? That's pretty unbelievable. As the two contenders battled it out, members of the Moseys looked at each other in surprise. Anders had long been an idol to everyone. In Dragonmarsh, only a few could be compared to him, and each was a top-tier talent. The only ones that came close were the Spanners twins from the Spanner family, Fenley Hudson from the Celestial Alliance, and Glenn Hadley from the Sword Union. However, no one expected an unknown newcomer to match up to Anders. Who are you? Anders asked in a low voice, his eyes devoid of disdain. Their exchange of blows had left him quietly concerned. He knew Destin's strength matched his own. The puzzling part was how this seemingly unremarkable person was so strong. Was he hiding his identity? Could some influential figure be backing him, carefully cultivating an exceptional talent? I'll let you know who I am in due time. But today, I'm not in the mood to play with you, Destin said coldly, making a casual remark before leaving. The severed head in his hand continued to drip blood. Destin was well aware of Anders' influential position, almost on par with a grandmother in terms of power and strength. Despite not being afraid, Destin realized killing Anders would bring endless trouble. While the Moseys might tolerate the loss of a pawn like Scott, Anders' death would be a different story. As the Varos warrior, Anders held a status that the royal family wouldn't ignore. Hence, it would cause a significant uproar in Oakvale. Reluctant to engage in a prolonged confrontation, Destin hoped Anders would be sensible. If push came to shove and turned into a life-or-death situation, Destin wouldn't show any mercy. Seeing Destin retreat, Anders frowned and clenched his fist. However, in the end, he gave up the idea of attacking. Their strengths were likely evenly matched, and a head-on clash might result in mutual destruction. Risking so much for a dead pawn wasn't worth it. Without a guaranteed victory, he refrained from rash actions. A bald man approached, asking in a hushed tone, Sir Anders, are you just going to let him go? What do you suggest? Then, Anders swept a cold glance. This bastard dares to act recklessly in Jadaleaf Manor and even killed one of the Moseys. If we don't deal with him now, it'll be hard to settle our grievances, the bald man exclaimed indignantly. That makes sense, Anders nodded. All right, I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. Go and kill him, and I'll reward you handsomely afterward. What, me? The bald man's face stiffened, and he quickly waved his hands. Sir, I'm just a civilian with no combat skills. I have no clue about fighting. If you have no clue, then why are you here blabbering? Get lost. Anders shot the bald man a stern look. The bald man quickly apologized and ran away. He had intended to curry favor with Anders, but was instead shot down by Anders. Men, come here. Anders gestured, and two guards rushed over asking, What are your orders, sir? Deploy all resources and conduct a thorough investigation on Dustin Reese. I want to know everything about him, Anders commanded with a stern tone. Yes, sir. The guards responded and promptly departed, acting recklessly on my turf. Let's see who you really are, Anders muttered, his expression cold. Knowing the opponent was a crucial part of a battle. With comprehensive information about his enemies, Anders believed he could deal with Destin easily. Destin held Scott's head and confidently exited Jadaleaf Manor. He knew that his bold actions might lead to problems in the future, but he couldn't concern himself with that at the moment. His priority was to avenge Landa's death using Scott's death. It wouldn't be just Scott. Everyone involved would face the consequences. After wrapping the head in cloth, Destin drove back to the Cameron Manor. As evening fell, the Cameron Manor was full of wreaths for Lana's funeral. The events greatly impacted the Cameron family due to her status and its financial impact. Dubon's immense popularity had made Lana a major shareholder and became her vital income source. Her sudden death was a severe blow to the entire Cameron family, shrouding their once envisioned prestigious legacy in uncertainty. In the hall, Lana lay peacefully in a centrally positioned coffin, as if in a tranquil sleep. Mateo, kneeling beside it, had already dried his tears. The other Cameron family members present looked sorrowfully at the sight, quietly sharing condolences. Lana, who was perfectly fine just yesterday, unexpectedly passed away. It was a hard reality for her family to accept. Mateo, we're truly sorry for your loss. Please accept our condolences. Mateo, take care of yourself. The Cameron family still needs you. The Cameron family members came to express condolences. After spending some time with Lana, they offered words of comfort to Mateo. Mateo simply nodded, keeping his thoughts to himself. As the sorrow deepened, tears continued to flow. Hey, why are there so many funeral wreaths? Who passed away? At that moment, a sharp voice was heard from the entrance. Two women, followed by a group of people, confidently walked in. It was Eleanor and Elena. What brings you to here? Mateo's expression darkened upon seeing them. Why are you mourning, Mr. Cameron? Is it because your daughter is gone? Elena mocked. Yeah, that's right, Eleanor chimed in, approaching the coffin with a sneer. It's a real shame for a gorgeous lady like her to have her life cut so short. How unfortunate. As their words echoed, everyone in the mourning hall turned sharply toward them. What did you just say? Mateo, who was still grieving, roared at Eleanor and Elena. His sorrow transformed into anger. Seeing things were getting out of hand, two of the Cameron family members by his side quickly held Mateo back. One of them whispered, Mateo, these two are heiresses from the high society. You can't afford to make a scene. Just let it slide. Yeah, they're trouble. If something happens here, it will affect our whole family. Another chimed in. Taking a deep breath, Mateo reluctantly suppressed his emotions. Mr. Cameron, no need to get all worked up. You should watch your temper. It's not good for your health, Eleanor said, smirking. She was prepared for the occasion. She wasn't about to let the Cameron family intimidate her. What do you want? My daughter's gone, and you're here to add insult to injury. Mateo shouted. Hey, Mr. Cameron, don't just accuse us like that. Lana was like a sister to us, and her passing genuinely saddens us, Eleanor said, pretending to be sincere. That's right. We came as soon as we heard about Lana's passing to offer our genuine condolences, Elena added, echoing Eleanor. Now that you've paid your respects, just leave, Mateo said coldly. Mr. Cameron, don't be too hasty. We're here to mourn for Lana. And while we're at it, to discuss some business with your Cameron family, Eleanor said, smirking. We're still mourning. Business is the last thing on our minds. Please, leave. Mateo said, his face stern, not caring anymore. With his daughter gone, he had nothing to fear. Mr. Cameron, it would be wise to hear our terms before making any decisions. Trust me, if you brush us off now, you might regret it. Eleanor warned with a smug expression. I don't give a damn about your terms. Even if it's a big deal, the Cameron family isn't interested, he said firmly. With Lana's recent passing, Eleanor and Elena showed up at the funeral, cracking jokes and discussing business. It was an unmistakable disrespect to the grieving Cameron family. Mr. Cameron, it's in the best interest of the Cameron group to consider our proposal. Are you sure you want to dismiss it? Eleanor's expression turned cold. What are you talking about? Mateo's face changed. The Cameron family had stepped on the Mosey's toes. You must be aware of that, right? She stated plainly. What do you mean? He furrowed his brows. He knew that his daughter's death was linked to Scott, and considering the formidable backing of the Mosey Mansion family, seeking revenge wasn't an option. It wasn't just about him, but the entire Cameron family was at stake. Taking any drastic action would only spell doom for the Cameron family. Mr. Cameron, with the Mosey's power, bringing down the Cameron family would be a walk in the park. I'm sure you know that. Eleanor began laying out the facts. The key issue is that your daughter, while working with Dustin, has offended Sir Mosey's godson, Scott. If this feud isn't resolved promptly, not only will your daughter pay the price, but your whole family will suffer. Everyone was shocked by this. Lana's suspicious death now made sense. She had offended Scott. It became evident why Mateo had been hesitating, reluctant to seek revenge. Oh, no, I've heard Scott Mosey is ruthless. If he decides to retaliate, we're all in serious trouble. The Cameron family members were in a frenzy, trying to figure out how they had attracted the attention of the Moseys. As a second-tier family, the Camerons knew they couldn't match the influence of a powerhouse like the Moseys. The Camerons knew that if the Moseys wished to, they could easily wipe the Camerons out overnight. Mateo's expression soured as he asked, "What do you want?" Despite his reluctance to admit it, the Cameron family was still in serious trouble. They hadn't fulfilled the conditions promised to Scott. Even with his daughter's death, the threat loomed over them. Mr. Cameron, no need to worry. We're here to help you through this tough time. Eleanor smiled. Yeah, given our deep connection with the Moseys, if we vouch for you, the Cameron family will be spared. Eleanor added confidently. Why are you helping us when we're not even related? Mateo asked sternly. He wasn't buying their seemingly kind acts. Well, that brings us back to the deal I mentioned earlier, Eleanor chuckled. She added, your Cameron family produces DuBomb. I believe you hold the formula and related pharmaceutical information. My request is simple: hand over these things, and I guarantee the safety of the Cameron family. How about it? Dream on, Mateo flatly refused. DuBomb is my daughter's hard work and a key factor in our family's growth. Do you think I would let you snatch it away with just a few words? You bunch are just greedy. Mr. Cameron, DuBomb is indeed priceless, but compared to the lives of your entire Cameron family, it's negligible. Eleanor continued to press. Think about it. Is DuBomb more important, or the lives of your entire family? Mateo found himself momentarily at a loss for words. While he recognized the value of DuBomb, it paled in comparison to his family's safety. However, the thought of surrendering the legacy left by his daughter, a symbol of hope for the family's ascent, felt unjust. Mr. Cameron, the lives of your entire family in exchange for. The formula is a deal you should appreciate. Keep in mind that not everyone gets such an opportunity. Eleanor remarked in a condescending tone. Mateo, maybe you should consider it. Family comes first. Our lives matter more. Some Cameron family members tried to persuade him. Yeah, Mateo, you can always earn money back. If people are gone, there's nothing left. At that moment, many Cameron family members started advising Mateo. They were genuinely afraid of offending the Mosey's mansion and facing dire consequences. Mr. Cameron, you've got 3 minutes to decide. If you don't agree, you'll have to face the consequences, Eleanor declared impatiently. She believed the Cameron family had no other options and felt she could manipulate them easily. No need to decide. Don't even think about getting the DuBomb formula. Now leave. A cold voice suddenly came from the door. Then Dustin walked in, carrying a head wrapped in cloth. Dustin, what in the world are you doing here? Eleanor furrowed her eyebrows, her expression turning icy at the sight of Dustin. Their past encounters had already made them sworn enemies. Reese, why do you keep showing up everywhere? Seriously, talk about bad luck. Eleanor grimaced in disgust. Their last visit to Cameron Medicals had been a disaster. Instead of gaining an advantage, they faced severe criticism, deepening her resentment toward him. If you two are here for the DuBomb formula, I strongly advise you to drop that idea right now. Dustin spoke coldly. What does it have to do with you? Stop butting into others' problems. Eleanor huffed. Exactly. Your life is hanging by a thread, and you dare to meddle in our affairs. Are you trying to speed up your death? Eleanor mocked. They knew well that Lana's death was linked to Scott, and they had come to take advantage of the situation. As for Dustin, he was just a step away from death. Once Scott's men went after him, he would undoubtedly meet a gruesome end. So they didn't think much of him. The dew bomb is the result of my collaboration with Ms. Cameron. Anyone trying to take it forcibly will face serious consequences, Dustin asserted. What? Are you trying to scare us? Elena scoffed, showing her disdain. You're just a martial artist, nothing special. Do you really think you can go up against us? Dream on. Dustin, I suggest you stay out of this. You don't want to suffer the same fate as Lana, right? Eleanor sternly cautioned. So Lana's death has something to do with you. Dustin's face darkened with a murderous glint in his eyes. Hey, don't spout nonsense. We didn't do anything. Elena quickly denied it, panic creeping in. Dustin, don't blame me for not sparing you. If you don't leave right now, I'll call Scott, Eleanor threatened coldly, pulling out her phone. She added, let me tell you, Scott has placed a hefty bounty on your head. Once he finds you, you won't stand a chance. Eleanor recalled Abigail had used poison to stop Scott's retaliation previously. But now, with the situation, Scott's revenge was inevitable. You can try. Call Scott and see if he picks up. Dustin replied indifferently. Dustin, are you not afraid of death? Eleanor glared at him. Sure, I'm scared. But let's see whether you got what it takes to make it happen. Dustin retorted. Eleanor, this bastard is way too cocky. Quick, call Mr. Mosey to put him in his place. Elena couldn't take it anymore. To her, Dustin was just a martial artist. She couldn't believe he could stand against the Moseys. Arrogant fool. I'll make you regret this. Eleanor's expression darkened as she promptly dialed Scott's number. Ms. Welch, hold on. Corey panicked and swiftly intervened. Let's talk this through. There's no need to escalate things and bring the Moseys into it. Yeah. Let's sit down and discuss this calmly. Do we really want to trouble the Moseys? Several members of the Cameron family attempted to mediate the situation. They weren't concerned about what would happen to Dustin, but they had to consider the safety of the Cameron family. Scott's ruthlessness could spell disaster for them. As demonstrated by Lana's death, the Cameron family was terrified of what Scott was capable of. Eleanor's expression softened as she heard the Cameron family's pleas. She calmly stated, I'm willing to give you a chance. I'll hold off on that call and maybe even help the Cameron family out of this mess. But, like I said, you've got to hand over the dew bomb formula. No problem. We're good with that. We'll hand over the formula. Corey nodded eagerly. The Cameron family's life was flourishing, and they weren't willing to risk their well-being for a simple formula. Eleanor turned to Mateo and asked, Mr. Cameron, what's your take on this? Mateo pondered, biting his lip, and eventually gave a reluctant nod. The Welch and Forrest families seemed well-prepared and determined. The imposing presence of the Moseys left the Cameron family with few options. The group with the secret that everyone desired now had to carry the weight of the sins of the guilty party that was aiming for their doom. This unexpected twist caught everyone off guard. Well done, those who grasp the situation are the sharp ones. You've made a smart choice, Eleanor said with satisfaction. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and hand over the formula, Eleanor urged. Sure, no problem, Corey agreed, urging Mateo to get the formula. Wait, Dustin interjected. The dew bomb formula is the result of Lana's and my hard work. You can't just hand it over to them. Enough already, okay? Don't be so selfish. You might not fear death, but don't drag the Cameron family into this, Eleanor said, stirring the pot. Mr. Reese, have mercy. We can't afford to provoke these people. Only by giving them what they want can we ensure our safety. I'm begging you, spare us any more trouble. Corey pleaded. Dustin, Lana is already gone. I can't bear to lose more of my family. Please step aside, Mateo said raspily. Mr. Cameron, this mess started because of me. I'll handle it properly. I guarantee the safety of the Cameron family. Dustin spoke with solemn assurance. Guarantee? At these words, Mateo couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. His face twisted into a wry smile. Dustin, what are you using to back up that promise? You don't have any power or influence. How can you stand against these influential families? Don't fool yourself. Your actions have already led to my daughter's death. Do you want to bring down my entire family now? Mateo's voice grew louder as he spoke, showing his frustrations. Dustin tightened his lips, guilt etched across his face. Lana's death is my fault. I'll do everything in my power to make things right and ensure your family's well-being for the rest of your life. That's my promise. I don't need your promises, and I don't need your attempts at making amends. All I ask is that you stay away from us and stop causing more trouble. Mateo shouted. Reese, you heard him. The Cameron family doesn't welcome you. Get lost, or we won't hold back. Eleanor roared. Not holding back. Dustin turned toward them, coldly saying, Oh, really? Are you actually considering laying hands on me? What if we are? We came prepared today. Eleanor retorted and snapped her fingers. Soon, a group of thugs rushed in, surrounding Dustin. Each one looked eager and primed for a fight. Dustin, I know you've got some moves, but these guys are hand-picked experts. I doubt you can take them all on by yourself. Eleanor raised her head arrogantly. She was convinced that he wouldn't stand a chance as Dustin was. Just an ordinary martial artist and that little troublemaker. Abigail was not around. Just this pathetic bunch that are trying to pass off as experts. Can't imagine where you get that confidence. Dustin scanned the group with indifference. How outrageous. This piece of shit sure is daring. The thugs roared, clearly unhappy about being underestimated by someone younger. Still pretending to be all that, huh? Elena huffed. Then she ordered, Guys, kick him out. Yes, miss. The thugs drew their knives and charged at Dustin. Get lost. Dustin stepped forward, unleashing a powerful surge of energy. As if struck by a truck, more than a dozen thugs were sent flying. They landed several feet away, struggling to get up and coughing up blood. Everyone was shocked seeing this. The Cameron family, Eleanor and Elena, were left speechless. No one expected Dustin to be that strong. He effortlessly sent a dozen skilled fighters flying with just one move. It seemed unreal. How is this possible? Eleanor and Elena exchanged bewildered glances. They had brought in a team of experts, thinking they could easily handle Dustin. However, with just one move, he shattered those expectations. How could this piece of shit be so powerful? Now, still thinking of making a move, Dustin stepped forward, causing Elena to stagger back, her face draining of color.